Welcome to the Calligraphy Masters podcast. My name is Milenis, and this is a show where I talk with some of the most inspiring and influential artists in the world of calligraphy, lettering, and sign painting with the goal of exploring their mindset and understand how they became successful. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Calligraphy Masters podcast. This one is special. I know with every guest I say the guest is special, but this time my guest is Kestrel, which is one of the newest addition to Calligraphy Masters crew, and I've been following her for some years now, and I'm super excited to finally talk with her and hear about her journey. So, hi Kestrel, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. I'm completely, shocked, honored, thrilled, everything to be invited to be part of Calligraphy Masters. I've so looked up to the amazing work that you post on the feed and the time and energy that you put into the community for so many years that, when we have interacted over time here and there, privately through Instagram, I've always been like, wow, this is great. And I'm so glad to connect with you individually. And now just to be part of this is amazing. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. The honor is mine, because I'm very passionate about calligraphy, lettering, and everything that I do it out of passion. But because I have to do all this stuff, I'm not the best calligrapher, my love and passion for calligraphy is bigger than my skills. And I appreciate each one of the people in the community, and especially each one of you, like you, which are now part of the Calligraphy Masters crew. We're now 81. I hope to quickly get to 90 people, and then it will be closed for some time. I mean, after 8 years, this is the first time which I go above 36 people, so all of the sudden almost 60 new members. It's pretty crazy.
You have your hands full. Well, I'm excited to see everybody's work too. I'm sure that you'll have just this whole new batch of inspiration ready for all of us.
I'm super hyped because you're someone who does a lot of work, not only with your art, but you know what it is to run a community. And I do a lot of crazy stuff, and I'm super excited because with having so much members, and I believe we're gonna do some really nice things for calligraphy community. And let's talk about your journey. Let's talk about journey. So I know I'm not supposed to ask women how old are you, but this is something which I ask everybody on the podcast, because I think it's important for people to know that it doesn't really matter what age you are. You can be always calligrapher, and it also maybe will motivate some people if they're like, oh, I'm too young or I'm too old. That's the only reason. I please don't
worry.
So start with where are you from, how old are you, and what's your childhood been like? At what point in life you met with calligraphy?
Okay, well, I'm 49, so actually I'm almost 49. I've been getting used to saying that I'm 49, even though my birthday is not for a couple more months. And I live in Northern California in Sonoma County, about an hour north of San Francisco. So kind of in the whole wine industry winery area. So beautiful weather, can't complain. And this is where I was born. I was born here. Like many people, left the area for a while, and then I ended up coming back to my hometown. So born and raised here.
Awesome.
Let's see. I was born in 1973 in Northern California, which means I had a very hippie childhood growing up, very, very different. All of us called our teachers by their first names, and, very casual and hippie childhood.
what does this mean? Because I'm not from America, and I'm just curious, because does this mean that you're not supposed to call teachers by the first name now, or what?
No. Typically, it's Mr. So and so, Mrs. So and so.
Okay.
So that was like a period of time in the 70s when everything was kind of like peace and love and relaxed, and at least in certain subcultures. So definitely was part of that. Anyways, my father was a mechanical engineer. My mom was one of the, she was a computer programmer back in the day of like punch card computers that took up whole rooms. So both of them very, very smart people, very logically focused. I didn't have art in my life as a child at all. Not that it wasn't appreciated. I just didn't grow up with artist family or art community. So I grew up very math and focused and everything.
I see.
So I started college as a math major, and because that was always my strong subject. It was always what came easily for me and what was comfortable for me. And then partway through college, because of being a waitress, so I waitressed in college.
Okay. I've been a bartender for 11 years.
I was a waitress in college, paying my way through rent and all that. And I went to San Francisco State University. And here in California, at least in the restaurants, like no matter what kind of restaurant it is, it could be Italian, Japanese, it doesn't matter what kind of restaurant it is. A lot of the kitchen staff workers speak Spanish. So I worked at a restaurant, and when I would go into the kitchen to pick up plates, it'd be like crossing a time travel, or not a time travel, but like a warp in space. And all of a sudden everybody was speaking Spanish. And it was so intriguing to me that, they could have this whole conversation and I was completely clueless. And so I wanted to start learning Spanish with them, and they really took me on under their wing and started teaching me Spanish. I ended up switching my major in college to Spanish.
Really?
Never took a single art class. Even in high school, I never took art as an elective. I always took accounting. Okay. I was a total nerd.
Wow, that's a different story, but that's cool.
I know. I never did any art. I was very, very nerdy. So
nothing wrong with that.
So graduated college with a degree in Spanish and math, and then ended up moving to Mexico for 5 years, where I got married and had my children. Were born in Mexico, and lived there for 5 years. I only came back to the States once during that time. It just was too expensive for me to travel to the United States. So my mom would go visit me down there. And then when I moved back, when my kids were little, because I lived in a very rural area of only 250 people. So the schools weren't very supported. So I decided when my kids were little, I needed to come back to the States so that they would have better access to education. Mm-hmm. When I came back to the States in 2001, I think it was, I became a Spanish and math teacher, high school Spanish and math teacher. Okay. Still didn't know anything about calligraphy, didn't know it even existed really. And then fast forward, because nobody needs the blow by blow of my life.
No, it's up to you, whatever you share, for me, it's all good.
So I worked in public education. I got my master's in educational leadership, became a school leader, vice principal, and then district office management. And then in 2013, so my later husband, Francisco, who's from El Salvador, so still Spanish in my life, in my world, but not, he and I started a laser engraving business as a little side hobby thing. Like honestly, we had no idea what we were doing.
Okay, now I have some idea. Like just that you mentioned this, I already know some stuff, but that's cool. Okay.
So anyway, I don't know how much you wanted me to go into.
No, it's up to you.
Going.
Like, I mean, it's cool. I mean, for me, it's super nice to hear. I just said because it makes sense, because I know you're doing also engraving, and I'm connecting some dots. That's all.
Right. So I'm kind of leading into like how I discovered calligraphy, basically, because it was a wiggly path to calligraphy. It really didn't start with calligraphy. And so we started a laser engraving business. I was at that time, we both had our full-time day jobs. I was in public education management. He was in IT. And I had a side gig as a consultant for the state of California for evaluating underperforming schools. And that was just like this little side thing that I did once a month. But when you have a side gig, it's nice to have that extra money. And so you kind of get used to having this little extra money thing. And we called it fun money, so that we could spend it without feeling guilty about spending it. And it was like an extra $1,000 a month. It was really nice to have.
Of course.
But it required me to travel like a 6-hour drive, no other good way to get there, once a month for a weekend. So after 2 years of doing that on the side, the traveling part was getting pretty old. And Francisco had a laser engraver that he, in the garage that he messed around with as his hobby, right? One of those garage toys. So one day I was like, maybe if we make some stuff that other people would like, not your boy hobby stuff. Maybe I could sell some things. And what if we could replace that consulting gig that I had? What if we could replace that fun money so I could stop traveling every month? And that's and we thought that was going to be an amazing goal. Like we thought that was far-fetched and never going to be possible. But that was how I started getting involved with him in the laser engraving. And, he knew the technical side. He knew how to run the equipment, the machinery. He taught me that part. And then I did a lot of the graphic layouts, the designs and combining the fonts and adding borders and, just playing with the visual aesthetic part of the laser engraving. And I loved that. And I got really into computer fonts and loved especially the fonts that were made with hand written calligraphy, and that had like alternate ligature swashes that you could add on and things like that. I loved fonts. And so over some, less than a year of doing the laser engraving and doing all those graphics, I really wanted to be able to control the fonts more, or have fonts that I want it to go like this instead. So I started getting intrigued by the idea of making computer fonts, and started looking into how do I make a font? Somebody made some of these fonts with handwriting, so somehow it's possible.
Of course.
I started poking around in that, ended up getting software, HiLogic, to make fonts, struggled through figuring out how that program works, because it's not like the easiest program to use. And And then that led me to I was like, well, if I'm going to make a font, I have to know how to do the calligraphy. I don't know how to do calligraphy. So I looked online. The first account that I kind of stumbled upon was Lindsay's account, The Postman's Knock.
Okay.
The Postman's Knock, she has a bunch of worksheet downloads. She's very active with posting new content all the time. She shows a lot of demos. She was the first person I came across. And so I bought a calligraphy pen, I think from Paper and Ink Arts.
Which year was this? Do you remember?
This was like 2014. I'm a baby calligrapher in the calligraphy world. I look at people who, I know we'll talk about who inspires me and who I like, but so I'm such a baby in the calligraphy world still. I have so much to learn, and there's so many people that have so much more experience and knowledge than me that it just blows me away. But this was 2014 before I even bought a pen. And I didn't know what I was doing, of course. I didn't even know how to pick out the nibs. There's, you look online to buy nibs and there's umpteen billion kinds. And, I didn't even know how to pick nibs and to make sure that I got pointed pen nibs and not round nibs or anything else.
Nibs, yeah.
Yeah, right. And then I remember getting the nibs and getting some ink. I don't remember what kind of ink I bought at first. Probably something that said calligraphy ink on it because I wouldn't know how to pick otherwise. And I remember dipping the nib in the ink and being like, what's wrong? Why it doesn't stick? It doesn't work. And it won't write because I can't get the ink to stick on it. I didn't even know you had to clean nibs first.
Well, most beginners don't know.
Right?
I think this is one of the biggest problem with all people coming to calligraphy. Why my nib is not working? What's going on?
Right. How does anybody get this to even work in the first place, right? So of course I struggled through all of that, and I didn't find it easy to find that information. Mm-hmm. I didn't find that it was really readily searchable, readily available information. And probably part of the problem was I didn't know enough to know how to search for the right information.
Well, it's not only this. It's not only this because back in 2014, this is the year when I made Calligraphy Masters. This was one of the reasons I created it, because there was very few websites about calligraphy, and most of them, they were outdated, super old, very ugly, and almost no information. And that was part of the reason that I started, because there wasn't much information at all.
Right. And then I also remember at that time in 2014, that was when Instagram still only allowed 15-second videos. And so everybody would use, what was that app? Hyperlapse, right?
Oh, that's so back in the time. I don't really remember, because the first 1-2 years I was not I had an Instagram account, but I didn't start yet posting regularly there.
People would use this app, I think it was called Hyperlapse, to speed their videos way up, because they had to make it fit into 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And so, and people would always post, video at 6 times speed or video at 4 times speed. So intellectually, I knew that the video was sped up, but at the same time, how do you really visualize how to reverse 6 times speed? And so I knew that people's videos, those 15-second clips, were really faster than they were actually writing. But at the same time, I thought they're writing at regular writing speed, and and then speeding the video up from there, right?
Yeah.
So I also remember that I was trying to just get the ink to stick to the nib. Then I was trying to write at regular handwriting speed because I thought that that's what people were doing. And then I remember it was a couple months in to me being completely frustrated before I saw a real-time video.
Okay.
And I saw like how actually slowly people were writing. And that was the most mind-blowing moment for me right there. Like, I was like, what? Oh, you mean it's okay to go, like, I can go that slowly? And I remember running to like find my pen and pick it up again. So I remember that being a huge revelation moment.
Wow, this just makes me think, because I never if I think about it, I never I was not surprised. Like, I knew they were sped up, and I just didn't expect to write faster, so I was going with my own speed. But just you saying it makes so much sense, because so many people have asked similar things, and I'm just it's crazy how people how to say it, how deceiving all this stuff is for new people.
It was very deceiving. And so, and I remember that so vividly. And I still, to this day, I don't post a lot of videos because, gosh, videos are just so hard to get the right angle and without the camera in my way. And so it's one of my goals, but it's been one of my goals for like a year to post more videos. But when I do post a video, I'm very cognizant to at least make sure that part of the clip is at real time. I really hardly ever post anything where there's nothing showing people how slowly you're actually going. That might not be 100% true. There might be a video or two out there that I've posted all sped up, again, trying to get it to fit into the current time limitations that have gotten a lot longer now. But I don't want to do that to anybody else, to any other newbies out there that, are struggling, because I remember how crazy that was of a revelation to me. So I try to be very aware of that.
This is cool, because besides you, Paul Antoni is the only one who, and I've spoken with him, he doesn't want to speed up his videos, and I've been telling him, you have to speed them up, because algorithms work in such way that if you want to be seen, videos has to be short. Right. They have to, I know it's not good for calligraphy, especially for new calligraphers, but if you want to grow an audience, this is what you have to do. Right. And now that we are just discussing it, I'm thinking maybe I just should focus, spread a bit more information, like maybe write an article and start mentioning it more often, because there are definitely a lot of people who don't know about this.
Or like I said, even if, I totally understand the need to speed up videos, but maybe, you can split the video and have a few seconds of it at real speed, and then have it speed up, right? So at least people would get a glimpse of like, oh yeah, we go really slowly. Like, calligraphy is not a speed sport.
No. Yeah, but there are some people who can write very beautiful and very fast, but those are all masters and people who have experience more than 20, 30 years. And...
Oh, if you've seen Chen Long Open Ink from Open Inkstand, Chen Long writes so fast. It's crazy. I tease her all the time. I'm like, how do you think anybody else can do this? You're like superhuman or something.
Yeah, I've seen her videos on YouTube. I love her work actually a lot.
She's great. Yeah. So anyway, I had the same bumpy beginning to trying to figure it out, and as everybody else. So, and then long story short, I just continued to develop, use the laser engraving business and use Francisco's craftiness and maker side. I rope him in on everything. And so eventually, I started making ink stamps also. So like self-inking stamps. And so that tied into, kind of lettering things and that world of stationery and everything. And then at some point I was trying to find a calligraphy pen that was more comfortable to me. I don't have the right grip. I rest on my ring finger, two fingers on top. And
like that.
I like like that. It's how I've been writing since I was 4 years old, or whenever you start picking up a pencil. And Paul Antonio and I'll go, we'll go head to head on this one. And we have, because, Paul Antonio has done so much research on the anatomy of the hand and the muscular structure of the hand. And I mean, he's amazing at his geekery and all of that. Right?
But not everybody can do what he can do.
And so I fully believe and trust him that he's probably completely right about however, it might work best. But at the same time, I truly believe that, when you're as old as, I was 40 before I picked up a pen, a calligraphy pen. I'm not going to change my grip at that point. I've been holding a pencil the way I've been holding a pencil since I was 4 years old. Like, it's hard enough just to learn how to get the nib to work for you and make the right letter forms. I'm not going to also add in the factor of trying to hold the pencil in a way that's not comfortable to me. So I like a thicker grip. I just reached over, even my iPad, my iPencil, like I have this grip on it because that's what feels more comfortable to me. And I was trying to find a pen holder that was thicker, and the ones that I was finding online at that time, were really expensive, like $250 or so. And
well, they still are pretty expensive.
Right. And rightfully so, because they're nice, quality, handmade, very well crafted holders, but it made me nervous to spend that much money online, not knowing if it was going to be. So I was laying in bed with my laptop searching, and Francisco looked over, and he was probably on his laptop too, laptops in bed, super sexy. And he sees, and he's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm trying to find a calligraphy pen." And he goes, "Well, I'll make you one." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So anyway, he started figuring out how to, on the lathe. Again, he's a maker. He's a maker guy.
That's so cool. Like, I wish I had a Francesco.
I know, right? So then he's turning it on the lathe, and he'd be like, "Come here," and it's still attached to the lathe, and I'd be like trying to see what it felt like. No, it's more. And anyway, so he made me some holders, and again, this is around 2014, 15 still, and then people would see me using them and started asking where did I get it? I'm like, "Well, my husband made it." And like, "Well, can he make me one?" So that's how INKmeThis started. It was completely by accident,
Okay, but to this time, what was the script you started with? Was it some copperplate, some Spencerian, modern calligraphy, or like?
It was like, there's no name to what I was doing. It was awful.
Come on, like we all start at this point.
Right. So, I mean, I was doing modern, but not a nice modern. I was doing at that time, I didn't know anything about traditional hands at the beginning. A lot of what you would see more readily online, whether it was Instagram or even in Target, like stuff on shirts and pillows. It was all modern style that I was seeing. And so I really thought at that point that, just getting the thicks and the thins, and then beyond that, whatever you want to make the letters look like it's your choice and anything goes, So, and I was very, very clueless. And so I just was looking and seeing different scripts and kind of imitating. I also was imitating different, computer fonts. If I saw letter forms in computer fonts that I liked, I was trying to make those and kind of inventing my own, style as I went. And then I think it was around 2017 that I came across copperplate script. And again, I'm a baby calligrapher still in this world. And so I really focused then on learning copperplate, or started to focus on learning copperplate, but still doing like modern. But of course the copperplate started to influence the modern. And then I think everybody will relate also, I'm sure you'll relate to this. Like once you start learning, you realize how little you know. At first you think that you're like, oh, I got this, I'm going good. And then you start learning and you realize like, nothing. Right? Because you start learning about everything that's out there and the whole world that's out there that you didn't even know existed. And you realize how little you know. And it becomes like, sometimes I wish I still was clueless, because I was just happily clueless.
But you say 2017, by this point, like you've been like 3 years into calligraphy. Did you already fall in love with calligraphy and start being artist, or it was not yet this moment?
No, I was really loved it. I really loved just the look of pointed pen. Those shades and hairlines, just the complementary look of that. And so then I got introduced to the whole classic hands world and copperplate and then Spencerian. And then after that learned about, that Italian hand existed, and you start learning about all these other things that you didn't even know were out there. And in 2018, I think it was, I got introduced to INKmeThis.
Okay.
And so that's when I learned about INKmeThis. And that then, of course, completely changed my world. And I just made the best friends and connections through INKmeThis that are these people that have, 25, 30, 40, 50 years of calligraphy experience. And I'm just like, what? And totally jealous. Like I wish that I had that many years of experience. So now, and some of them are now my dearest friends. And
did you make some workshops with them when you discovered them? Did you attend some workshops, or?
I couldn't. So for the longest time, it was really difficult to find any workshops. Even being here, in the Bay Area, I had a really hard time finding workshops. So I still was mostly trying to learn from, looking at things online, printing exemplars, watching whatever videos I could see. So certainly had, the influences of of the teachers. And, I remember feeling like, since I hadn't really taken a class at that point, I remember saying and thinking that I was self-taught. Now I have a completely different perspective on that. Now I believe that nobody can say that they're self-taught. Like, no matter what, we all are learning from what we're seeing other people do. We're all learning from other people's exemplars, from watching their videos online. Just because you're not directly being taught by them individually or taking an actual workshop from them, you're still learning from them. Like, I don't think any of us can actually claim to be self-taught.
Wait, this is very interesting point of view, and I'm confused. I'm just trying to process if this is if this is true. I have to think a lot about it, but I will think about this. I mean, I never thought about it this way. Maybe you're right.
And maybe that's because my career was as a teacher that I feel that way. Maybe that's partially influencing my philosophy on that. But I believe that we have to credit all of those people that we learn from, even if we weren't formally sitting in their class,
Yeah.
So, like, I haven't ever sat in a class with Paul Antonio, but I've learned from him for sure, right? So, for example, and I could go on and on with my list of people like that, right? And I need to credit. I feel like it's only right to credit that. So, then what? Then I did have opportunities to take a couple of classes in person, especially going to INKmeThis was amazing for that. I took Italian Hand from Heather Held. Like, I don't think anybody can think of Italian Hand, or at least, in my world, you can't think of, in my little brain, you can't think of Italian Hand without thinking of Heather Held, right? And I took Flourishing and from Suzanne Cunningham, right? Who can talk about flourishing without Suzanne Cunningham? And I took Spencerian from Michael Saul and wow. Harvest Crittenden, and took Signature Design from Mike Ward, and
wow, you've attended some nice workshops,
right? So I feel like super blessed to have had the opportunity to be just around these people that I think are so amazing. I'm still not friends with a broad edge nib. So Sachin still has a lot of work to do with me when it comes to making friends with a broad edge nib. But I've taken his italics class. I hosted him for italics, and he'll be back again in June. So I'll be again in June trying to force myself to become friends with a broad edge nib. I don't know why people say that a broad edge is easier than pointed pen.
It is.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I'm mostly writing with broad edge pens and nibs, and like for the longest time I owned like pointed nibs, but I just didn't. They were just sitting there. I don't know. It's very confusing and hard for me to.
That's how I feel about broad edge nibs. And granted, I have to also recognize I have not put the time into them, because every time I sit down and think, all right, I'm going to get the hang of this, I'm going to practice with a broad edge nib, about 10-15 minutes in, I'm so annoyed.
But
I'm so frustrated.
Also, I think like the pointed nib scripts, they're more like feminine in a way, So like, I don't want to put a gender on the script, but
right.
Somehow it's more like feminine to me, like more like very like I don't know how to explain. My English is not so good, but
I think it's clear.
from my experience, most people that do with broad edge nips or pens are guys for some reason.
For me, I do prefer the elegance in my mind. I know that's very subjective of pointed pen. Even over time, my pointed pen scripts, I do a much lighter shade at this point than I used to do. Like I have over time preferred a thinner and thinner shade to my script. I don't even like really heavy, thick shade. And so, yes, I do prefer the aesthetics, the look of pointed pen. But then again, there's definitely, like you take italic hand. I love italic hand that has the tall ascenders and the long descenders, and it gives it that elegance and swoopiness and length, that kind of is of the pointed pen world. Like Huang does some beautiful italic hand like that. Sachin too, and where it's really elegant. But I can't make friends yet with a broad edge nib to even do it like basic. So I'm far from being able to do the style of broad edge that I am drawn to. But then I also love the way it looks when pointed pen is used for traditionally broad edge scripts, like Mike Kessig with his taking Untitled and doing pointed pen Untitled. Like yes. I prefer the look of pointed pen Untitled over broad edge Untitled. Okay. I think it's more elegant looking. It's more, so that's, and it's aesthetics. It's all personal taste, right?
Of course.
So I am definitely a pointed pen, person, one trick pony.
And I just have a question because we're going far from the team, but you said all these workshops. Do you remember which was your very first workshop and how much it changed about you?
I think my very first actual workshop was Pat Blair. Pat Blair came to Berkeley for a 3-day workshop, and I thought, oh my gosh, an opportunity to learn from the White House chief calligrapher.
Wow.
At that time, she still was the White House chief calligrapher. And I didn't know much about her work. She didn't post much on Instagram, and her Instagram account at that time was private.
Okay.
So I didn't know much about her work, but I knew she was the White House chief calligrapher, so she must be good, right?
Of course.
So I signed up for the workshop because it was, again, I hadn't seen any opportunities in my area, even looking, San Francisco, Bay Area. So when I saw that she was coming, and she was teaching it was called copper plate undressed copper plate. It's like a casual, it's really a modern script that is based on copper plate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I signed up and went, and she was lovely person. So nice to spend the weekend with. And then of course, started following her on Instagram. I remember that in the class, we had to tell her how to accept our requests because her account was private. So I think that was my very first class. And of course, because it was undressed copper plate, I was like, oh, well, I need to practice copper plate before I go to this workshop. But that was the beginnings. That was the beginnings. But, yeah.
And at what point you knew you fell in love with calligraphy and you felt like artist or calligrapher, or however
I
you
still
say it.
don't. I still don't feel like an artist.
Well,
At all.
like a calligrapher. I mean, you said you're like someone
Yeah,
who never been into, like, you had nothing to do
yeah,
with art in general. So I consider calligraphy kind of an art, even though it's craft. But
right.
let's say it's part of the art.
Of course it is. That's a whole nother conversation. Like I feel comfortable calling myself a calligrapher, but I don't feel comfortable calling myself an artist. That's a whole nother like topic.
Okay, at what point you felt that?
I don't know. I don't. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of because it was sort of this, it was sort of this blurry transition between doing the computer graphics for engraving and then doing the font, and I made computer fonts, and in the meantime still trying to learn the calligraphy, and it's kind of this blurry line of when you feel like you know how to do enough that you can kind of claim like, yeah, I'm a calligrapher. But then things kind of happened quickly. I feel I kept drawing on my, again, my kind of more math analytical background, and my father being an engineer. I was always raised like he would make me sit with him and take radios apart and change the muffler on the car and adjust the carburetor on the car and stuff. And so I was always raised with this very kind of, you can make things, you can do things, you can figure things out mentality. So as I was doing my calligraphy, I kept coming across things that I felt like would make my life easier as a calligrapher and that I needed, but I couldn't find them out there. So I think mostly what my calligraphy world participation has been is that I look at the calligraphy world and go, how can I what can I use to make this easier? How would this make my life easier? And if I can't find something out there, then we figure out how to create it and invent it. And then I figure that if it's something that I could use, other people could probably use it as well. So that's really been a lot of my world, is kind of creating things and making things that other calligraphers can then use. And it's all stemmed out of my own need for something. Like wanting to find a holder that was more comfortable to me but didn't cost me $250, or when I was looking for an ink stir, I wanted an ink stir that would plug in so that I didn't have to be dealing with batteries, and I wanted one that didn't have like a certain hole in it where you have to use a certain size jar, because I didn't want to have to transfer all my ink to a certain size jar. So I remember searching online, I couldn't find something that fit my desires other than like these really clunky, ugly laboratory equipment things, right?
And you made one?
And I didn't want an ugly, clunky laboratory thing sitting on my calligraphy desk where I'm trying to make beautiful stuff, right? Yeah. And I'm pretty bold. I'm not too shy. And so I called a laboratory equipment company and said, hey, you know how to make these magnetic stirrers, but they're really ugly. And I do calligraphy, and I would like to use your stir for ink. But I don't want this ugly thing on my desk. Can we work together? And can I partner with you? And I will design the aesthetics of it so that it will be a nice piece of equipment for the calligraphy world, but obviously, like, I'm not a mechanical engineer, so you guys need to keep doing the innards of it. so that was like back in 2017, I think. So that was the first product like that I did.
Okay.
So Ben Inkster, there's a INKmeThis inkster that I developed with a laboratory equipment.
So what exactly is INKmeThis? Because you mentioned earlier when your husband made the pen holder, and what is inside INKmeThis? Like, are there products? Are there services? And also, what's the difference between INKmeThis and LearnCalligraphy.com?
So INKmeThis actually started as our stamp making business.
Okay.
Like ink stamps, self-inking stamps that we were making with the laser engravers. So laser engraved rubber ink stamps. So that's actually how INKmeThis started, was stamps. So, and we still make stamps. And if you look on INKmeThis.com, there's still, stamps, custom stamps. Now calligraphers send me their writing to use to make stamps as well. So that's really how INKmeThis started. And then just got kind of lucky that the name INKmeThis was generic enough. It wasn't specifically about stamps, right? And ink goes across the worlds of what we do. So then when I started doing calligraphy and Francisco started making the calligraphy pens, the holders, then those got added to that website for sale. And then when we partnered with the lab equipment company and started manufacturing the inksters, those became part of it. And then there's other products. So Paul Antonio and I, because he also does, has done product development. We like to chat about that side of things. And then, developed a couple of other items for use in calligraphy. And I think in maybe 2018, I remember getting a message on Instagram from Suzanne Cunningham. And she messaged me on Instagram and said, hi, Kestrel. This weekend I was teaching a workshop and some of the students had your products with them, and I saw them for the first time. And I really think that you need to sell these things in John Neal books and paper and ink arts. And I was like, what? Suzanne Cunningham knows I exist? That was my first reaction. I had never interacted with her before. And so I was just starstruck, that she even knew I existed. And then not only that, she was encouraging me to sell my product, to reach out to sell my products in those shops, and which had not even occurred to me because, I'm this over here. But I did. So I reached out to both of the shops and got products in there. So that, that's how everything has gone, just little by little, and feel incredibly lucky with the connections that I've made in the community. Feel incredibly grateful to how open this community is and supportive this community is. And so I've just tried to also be a part of that side of this community. So then INKmeThis is still going. INKmeThis is like the product side, physical stuff that gets shipped, right? Or my calligraphy services if I do commissioned work or do on-site.
How many products have you developed so far? Like, you do know the number of different products?
The main ones like that I'm the most proud of at this, or that are the kind of the biggest accomplishments that I feel at this point, are the Inkster and the micromotor engraver, which is another product that, I mean, I don't think anybody's under the illusion that I'm a mechanical engineer and like developed the actual workings of it. That was another product.
No, but this is kind of entrepreneurship. Like, wait, how to pronounce it? You know what I mean? I mean, you make products and they're good and people use them, so nobody expects that you develop them or something.
Right. With the engraver, with that, it was like, I remember trying to figure out, I'd see people doing engraving, but I remember it took me a good 6 months maybe to figure out, like, what are people using to do this? Like, what do you buy? What equipment? What kind of equipment works well for what we do? And because, you know, of course, my husband, who has every tool imaginable, of course he had like a Dremel, you know. So I tried with that. That's really hard because it vibrates more and it's hard to hold. It's very clunky. Anyway, I remember that at that time, it was kind of a secret in the community what to use for engraving. People who did engraving seemed to hold it very tight to their chest. What should be used, what equipment to buy.
Really?
There were even people in the engraving community who, like, they would refuse to tell you what to buy because you had to take their class in order to know. And that was the first time that in this community I came across that attitude. And not to say by any means that all the people out there doing engraving were like that. It's just that the ones that were readily visible on Instagram, the ones that, you know, there's now at this point, I know plenty of other people who have been doing engraving for like 20 years who are more open about things, but they're not active on social media. So they're not, you know, you don't learn about them, you don't know about them easily to be able to ask them. So I, after figuring out, my good friend of mine, Nina Sandelin, here in the Bay Area, she was, you know, both of us at that same time, and she kind of found out first and told me. And anyways, then same thing with the engraver as with the stir. I felt like, okay, what's the best one to use? So I bought, like, I don't know, I probably spent like $3,000 buying all different ones that I could find and testing them out and trying them out. And then landed on one that was produced by a dental company for dentist work, for laboratory dental work.
Okay.
And again, just being how I am, called them up and talked to the owner, Rich, of the company. And I'm like, hey, Rich, my name's Kestrel and I'm a calligrapher and I'd like to use your micromotor drill to do calligraphy engraving. And he was like, what? To do what? And he's been in the dental industry for 30 years. Like, he's been selling to dentists, to laboratories, to, you know, that world for 30 years. And his father was, I can't remember if his father was a dentist or in the dentist equipment business also. So, and I chatted with him on the phone. I said, yeah, and this is what we would use. You know, this is how calligraphers use this type of equipment. This is what we could do. And he got it. Then once he wrapped his head around the idea of a dental drill being used for art, he got really excited about the possibility of kind of like me partnering with him to bring this product to a whole nother community, a whole nother
market,
right?
Yeah.
And so, but again, I said to him, but two problems. One, I want to make it look nicer because
this is ugly.
We're all about, everything that we do is to try to create beauty, right? Beautiful things. And so we like to also have our tools and supplies and equipment be nice looking so that it's also inspiring and it fits into the world that we're in. So I talked to him about that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Rich, it works great, but it's ugly. And so
I love that.
So then that was one, kind of problem that I wanted to solve with him. The other aspect was that I wanted it to be more accessible, more readily apparent to the calligraphy community. This is what you can use, right? So I also wanted to, market it as a calligraphy engraver. Like nothing out there at that time, and still, as far as, still to what I've seen, nothing out there is being marketed as this is a calligraphy engraver, so that people who don't know this is what you can use, this thing right here, right? And I also wanted it to come with all of the parts that you need. So those other engravers, when I had bought a bunch of different pieces of equipment to test them out and to try and to see what worked the best, in all of those cases, I also had to research, like, well, what collet size is it? How big is the hole that you stick the burr in? And is it the right size for the type of burrs that we need to use for engraving? And if not, then what collet reducer do I need to buy? And you had to buy everything separately. Like you had to research, okay, so this engraver has a 1/8 inch collet, but the burrs tend to be 1/16 inch or 3/32 inch. So I need to have a reducer from 1/8 inch to 3/32 inch to use these burrs. And I have to have a reducer from 1/8 inch to 1/16 inch to use these burrs. And you had to buy all that stuff separately, or you would get this piece of expensive equipment in the mail and still not be able to use it. And so that was another aspect that I felt was a stumbling block to solve for the calligraphy community. So when I started selling and marketing the calligraphy engraver, it comes with the reducer that's needed, and it comes with just some burrs. I mean, you have to buy more burrs. Burrs are like nibs.
Yeah.
They're disposable. You can't expect to use the same nib for the rest of your life, and you certainly can't expect to use the same burr for forever either. But it comes with 10 so that you, right out of the box, you can open the box and you can do something with it, right? That was important to me. Just like I think it's really ridiculous to sell a calligraphy pen that doesn't have a nib with it. I would never do that.
Well,
I always ship a nib. It might not be the nib that person ends up wanting to use, but I always include a nib with the pen, because how are you gonna sell a holder and not just at least put a nib in there? Come on, a nib costs $1.
Wait.
Put one in the box.
Okay, I'll start doing it. I never thought about this. Wow, I mean, this is just mind-opening. Seriously, but like you just said, I was like, oh my god, why I haven't done this? Well, I'm preparing
Give them a nib, just.
Yes, I'm preparing new pen holders, and I'll ship them with nibs. I promise. It's thanks to Kestrel. Wow.
I mean, like I said, they don't cost very much. Right?
Wow,
so
this is
make sure that the person gets one.
Thank you for this. Thank you. This is really a good one. I mean, I'm just serious. Wow, why I haven't thought of this?
So anyway, so those are, and then I've developed some other like rulers and templates and things. Right now I'm waiting for a shipment that's on the way of a new a product that Suzanne and I worked on together. So Suzanne's daughter is getting married this fall. I can't even imagine, having a mom like Suzanne to do all your wedding calligraphy.
Wow.
Right. So her daughter is getting married this fall, and she was working on, she needed to address the save the date envelopes, but they have gold lining in them. And so she couldn't use her light pad. And Suzanne very much likes to have both a baseline and a waistline. So while yes, she could use a laser to do it, she just really wanted to have both lines. And so she called me or texted me, I don't know. And she said, Kestrel, do you think you can help me make a template and so that I can easily put a baseline and waistline on these envelopes that I need to address for my daughter's save the dates, and I really want them to look nice because of course everybody's and I said, of course. And I know that Suzanne always uses the same guide sheet for envelope addressing. Like, it doesn't matter what size envelope it is. It doesn't matter, anything. Suzanne has her one guide sheet that she uses for envelope addressing all the time, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I had that guide sheet. So I said, of course, I have your guide sheet. I'll make you a template that you can use. So went out to the shop, designed the graphic for the laser cutting and marking, found a piece of scrap material because we have, so it was just a piece of scrap material, made her a couple of templates. I kept testing myself and then measuring, you got to take into consideration the width of the pencil line and the distance that the lead is from the edge of the template when you mark, right? Mm-hmm. To then make sure that you're still, her guide sheet is at a 4mm X height. And so cut the whole template for her, even added on her ascender and descender lines to mark if she wanted to. Shipped it off to her. I'm like, just let me know how it works. I can always make another one, again, scrap material. We have the laser cutters. And so she's like, oh, this is great. You should make more of them and sell them. But then the one thing about it was it being plastic, in order to put also a number line, that is very small strip of plastic on this template between the waistline of your X height and the number line height. So that little thin strip of plastic was too weak. Mm. If you pushed on it with the pencil, it wobbled it, which didn't work. So then I started researching manufacturers that could make a template out of thin metal, like credit card thickness metal. So those are made. Right now I'm waiting for them to be electroplated because I wanted them again to look nice. So I'm having them electroplated in like a goldish color. So that'll be the Suzanne Cunningham INKmeThis envelope liner.
Okay, this is so cool.
Things just happen because they happen. It's nothing planned out necessarily. So that's coming.
Just listening to all this, I'm thinking like, okay, what's gonna be the product, INKmeThis with the Calligraphy Masters? I'm like,
oh yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? Here's another thing, another problem that I was like, we all like writing on leather. Yeah. Doing calligraphy on leather is such, right? I'm sure you probably have a leather blotter on your desk. Leather has been used for hundreds of years as a writing surface, right? For reducing the friction of the nib. Mike Ward makes beautiful hand foiled leather blotters.
Yes.
We make them laser engraved, right? But not really my point about the leather ones. My point more is that, so that feels really good to write on, again, because of that reduction of the friction caused between the metal nib and the hard
Surface.
substrate.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't put a leather blotter on a light pad.
Okay.
Because obviously then you're blocking the light, right? And light pads are hard glass or plastic. And like, I can't do calligraphy without my light pad. Don't take my light pad away.
I still don't have a light pad, and just last few days,
oh my gosh,
I was so much in need, but I don't have yet.
they're so inexpensive now on Amazon. They used to be much more expensive. Now they're so readily available and so inexpensive. It doesn't even matter what brand. There's so many good ones out there. So Harvest Crittenden doesn't use a light pad either, and we always tease each other and joke about that, because I'm like, I don't even know how you survive without a light pad. But she's been doing this for 50 years, so she's got every trick up her sleeve. Anyway, so I was like, how can I get that same result of the smoothness of the nib flowing on my light pad, but not block the light of the light pad, because obviously we need it to function. So again, just started poking online, searching, buying different materials to test them out, lots of hours in bed with the laptop. Again, really.
This is the best place for ideas.
Well, you have to get done with your day, right? You have to finish all the stuff on your to-do list before you can research these extra ideas. Anyways, finally found a material. I'm going to pull it off of my light pad. It's a flexible, it's a type of flexible PVC.
I know, actually. I have the same thing. I had this at home.
Okay,
yes.
So it was difficult to find this. So anyways, now we have it made in like huge rolls, and then we cut them to different sizes for light pads and personalize them if people want with their name, and laser engrave them before shipping them out. So that's another like INKmeThis product. Again, seeing a need of my own. Everything has been because I wanted something or I needed something. Well, other than this envelope template now that Suzanne needed, right? And then again, figuring that if I need it or I feel like it could be useful, then I can't be the only one. And if you ever have manufactured anything, you know that it's incredibly expensive to just make one of something.
Of course.
Right? So if I were to try to manufacture something just for my own purposes, that would cost me thousands of dollars for this one item, which is not realistic either. So then I try to kind of kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, and get that thing that I want for my own use, provide it to other people so that we can collectively, as a mass group, pay for the production of, and bring that individual price down by manufacturing, 1,000 or 2,000 or of the item, so that we can all get it at much cheaper, including myself. And then LearnCalligraphy.com came when I filmed a course on engraving, because again, I felt like I don't like it when something feels difficult to figure out and learn about. And with my background as a public school educator kind of come from that mentality that information should be readily available and knowledge should be shared, and we all have something to contribute to learning, and we can all be teachers of each other in some way. So I filmed in 2018, very beginning of 2019, a self-paced video class for engraving, and needed a platform to put the course onto, because my website for INKmeThis is great for selling products, but it doesn't have the ability to have an online course. Like that website is not built for that. It just technically doesn't work for that. So opened LearnCalligraphy.com to put that engraving course up. And then right when that was launching, was when the pandemic started, right? And I had been teaching private students via Zoom. I had for a couple of years had been using Zoom to teach individual students one-on-one. And I remember I used to have to tell people, like, well, we'll use Zoom. And they'd be like, well, what's Zoom? And I remember saying all the time, like, oh, don't worry. Zoom is kind of like Skype. We'll be able to see each other online, and don't worry about it. You don't have to pay anything. I'll send you a link. All you do is click the link, and you just have to have a camera on your computer.
I had the same issue. Now that you say this, I had the same issue because I'm doing Zoom podcasts before the pandemic.
Right. So I was teaching calligraphy on Zoom before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and of course then the whole world was suddenly using Zoom, and there was a period of time there, not for very long, but like a month or two, and I'm sure you remember this being a prior Zoom user, when all of a sudden Zoom was not working super well because suddenly there were thousands of people using Zoom, and their infrastructure wasn't prepared for that sudden increase, and they fixed that issue very quickly and caught up very quickly. But there was this period of time where I was like, damn it, everybody go get off of my Zoom. I was here first. Go away, because it's not working anymore now with hundreds of thousands of people suddenly using Zoom. And so then just decided to take better advantage of the platform that I had already created, the website that was already built, LearnCalligraphy.com, and reach out to, Suzanne and other calligraphers that I knew in the community, and say, hey, let's offer classes together, and I'll take care of the computer side. I'll take care of the programming, the portal, and the locked registration, and uploading the videos and all of that. And you come and teach with me, and we'll work together. And then sometimes I would teach, and somebody else would monitor the chat for me. But I would do all the computer side of things, because I like that. I'm still a nerd at heart. Like, I still love Excel spreadsheets, and I love, getting into the back end of a website and adding some custom HTML, and it's super exciting when you get it to work right. That's really where my heart is. I think that's part of why I have a hard time calling myself an artist, because I really love the structured, technical, geeky stuff. And I see artists as being more creative and free thinking, and they just want to explore the possibilities. And I just don't, I don't know.
Well, there's all kinds of artists. So
I know. It's my own conception anyway. So, so so learncalligraphy.com became like, let's build a community of teachers and let's all work together. And then, Harvest Crittenden, great friend of mine, and she's been doing, Acorn Arts for years has had online calligraphy courses, but those were all pre-recorded, right? Like my engraving class was pre-recorded, self-paced, pre-recorded. And so she had already been doing that for, I don't know, a good 15-ish years, I think, long time. And I started doing the live online. And then we had, Harvest and I had plans to work together. She had invited me to go to film a class with her for Acorn Arts, but then the pandemic started, right? And got in the way of that. But then she and I really decided to work together, and we have a great relationship. And again, another example of this community, right? So Harvest and I are dear friends. In fact, we have a Zoom wine date for later today.
Okay. Wow, I never heard of this.
Oh, Zoom is great for many things, including drinking wine with friends.
Wow, that's a cool idea.
And so now we really collaborate with each other, and we always compare, like, what classes are you planning, and who are you planning to ask to teach? And we try to make sure that Acorn Arts and LearnCalligraphy.com are complementary to each other, and offering different things. And we really, I love her, and we work together a lot in that way. And then now she's hosting me for, classes, and I host her for classes, and we just build this one big happy family.
What classes are you teaching currently? Except the engraving, are you teaching something else?
I have my I'll be teaching copper plate. So the main classes that I teach are copper plate, and then I also have a calligraphy numbers class that is really fun, because I noticed that nobody spent a lot of time on numbers, and numbers always kind of get forgotten and lost, and always seem to be a rush at the end of a workshop if they're covered. Like somebody in the class will inevitably say, "Oh, can you show us numbers?" And there's 10 minutes left of class, and the teacher's like, "Oh yeah, here you go." Right? So about a few years ago, I made a whole just numbers class, and so that's a fun. I love that workshop because it's just fun and different. And then I have my copper plate workshop. That one's coming up next. That one starts really soon. But by the time this,
Yeah, I think this is gonna be probably in a month and something else. But
yeah. But all the classes we try to circle them back around once or twice a year, and keep them going and keep adding new ideas. So constantly trying to pull in different classes. There's so much out there to.
How many teachers are there at Learning Calligraphy? And also, is there some difference between 10 teachers and
around? Yeah, I can.
Is there a difference with Learning Calligraphy and Nibtique? I don't know if I pronounce it correctly.
Right. So Nibtique, I have too many balls in the air.
No, that's pretty awesome. I love that. I love it.
So Nibtique is a brand new site that just launched in mid-March this year, 2022. So at this point, as of today, it's not even been a month that Nibtique launched. And Nibtique is a platform for building a community of calligraphy artists to be for hire. Mm-hmm. So everybody is open to join. And when you join Nibtique, you create your own page, your own profile page with images of your work. You can upload your price sheet and list. You can designate, like, these are the types of services that I offer. And then you are visible and searchable to clients anywhere in the world. And again, Nibtique came out of me noticing that I was having trouble in an area. I was having trouble finding a good platform to put myself out there to clients for commissioned work, right? And how do clients find us for hire, especially if you don't have a huge Instagram following, or you don't, right? If you don't, like, how do you put yourself out there? And currently, well, until Nibtique, so not currently anymore, but the other platforms that exist for that, where we can list ourselves as calligraphy artists, platforms like The Knot, Wedding Wire, 100-Layer Cake, Style Me Pretty. There are certainly platforms out there, but they all have a few, I feel, pretty crucial problems for the calligraphy industry. One being that they focus on weddings, which of course wedding work is part of calligraphy world, but it's certainly not the only thing that calligraphers do, right? So those sites are all very much for wedding industry, and don't offer a way for us as calligraphers to showcase the other things that we do: certificates, family trees, monograms, logo design. There's a whole world out there that we do as calligraphers, right? And then the next big problem with those sites is that they lump calligraphers into the category of invitations. So because they also have photographers, DJs, cake makers, florists, everything else, and then calligraphers are lumped into invitations, which again, yes, we can do invitations, but it is not the only thing that we do. And when you get lumped into this one category of invitations, you just get lost amongst printers and online mass-produced, pre-designed digital downloads and things like that, right? So you just really get lost in that, in non-descriptive category. And then the third main problem with the sites is that they are very geographically focused, because all of those other vendor types, the florist, the photographer, the DJ, they need to be physically present at that wedding, right? And so those sites are all geared toward search based on a city, on a particular city. So when you join them, you have to say what city you're in, pay a ton. Most of those sites are over $1,000 a year. And you only are visible in one city. That's it. But we know in the calligraphy world, like, we don't need to be where the client is, except for some very specific types of work, on-site work, large signage. Yeah, that's easier if you're in the same location. Murals, window painting. Yes, you need to physically go, right? Later today, I'll be going to a winery to do their menu chalkboard wall thing, right? I have to go there. I have to be here. But for most of the other work that we do as calligraphers, we never see the client in person. We don't get invited to the wedding. We don't go to the event, right? It's all done on the phone. It's done with email proofs being sent. And then if it is a physical, it's being shipped to them, after we finish the envelopes, or even if it is wedding work, we don't need to see the client. And most of my clients have actually been on the East Coast, because there's a lot more formal events on the East Coast. Here in California, we're so casual. Like, as long as your jeans don't have stains on them, you can be appropriately dressed no matter where you go where I live. Like even the fanciest, most expensive restaurant, French Laundry, is half an hour away from me. You can't even hardly get a reservation there. It's super fancy. I could go dressed like this and it would be fine. We're very casual here in Northern California. So I never have local clients, hardly, unless it's for in-person work. And so those sites cost me a fortune and didn't really work to get me in front of clients elsewhere. And so again, seeing that need, that hole for our communities, and Francisco and I started in 2019 developing a website that people could, list themselves, but not be restricted by those things. And it would only focus on the calligraphy and engraving community. So the categories, instead of just being invitations, the categories are much more geared toward the calligraphy community and break it down into different topics. And then again, pandemic hit, and we kind of put it on hold because it felt for a while like, you didn't want to be expecting anybody to do anything new when they're just struggling to get through life for a while. And it was such a big project that we kept having to set it to the side to work on our day-to-day. Anyhow, so it took since 2019 of working on it to finally get the site launched in March. And there's already 450 artists on there for hire that have, created profiles and loading portfolios to show their work. And there's already people saying that they've been hired by clients to do work from it. So it's just so exciting. And the other thing that was important to me in building the site was for it to be a community. So I really believe that nobody should take commission off of somebody else's work. That's just wrong to me. I really believe if I'm asked to do a job and I'm not available, I don't feel comfortable doing that type of work, or I'm not in the area because they didn't pay attention to where I was and I did need to be physically present. I fully believe in not just responding to that client with, I'm sorry, I'm not available. I always respond back with, I'm sorry, I'm not available. Thank you for thinking of me. And I'd like to suggest that you reach out to so-and-so. And I always provide another name and their email address or their Instagram page or whatever I can provide of their contact information. And so on Instagram, I created an Instagram page a few years back called, it's just calligraphy engraving, where I would just post other people's pictures. And because Nibtique didn't exist yet, I started making story highlights where I'd just say, let's create a community of network of referring clients to each other. And the rule is, if you're asked to do work, you can't just say no. You have to say no, and here's so-and-so. And the other rule is you cannot take commission off of anybody else's work. And so, I mean, of course, these are rules, right? These are like, right? No.
This is pretty cool. I mean,
and I said, just send me a picture of yourself working, picture of yourself, and send me a few pictures of your work. And I would create a quick little video of the images together as a story highlight with their name, their link to their Instagram page, and ended up with about 150 people in the network, in the story highlights. And that was getting the ball rolling on Nibtique. So once Nibtique website was launched, which of course, on the story highlights, I was just putting a few pictures of their work. I wanted people, though, to be able to really control their own page, create their own profiles, edit and change the images anytime that they wanted to, and things like that. So once Nibtique was ready, once the website was live, all of those people that were the original Instagram network of referring work to each other, they all were put on Nibtique. Those story highlights aren't on there anymore. So those people were the original founders of, or so to speak, of building that community of people referring work to each other. So part of the way that the website works is that, like, on my profile page, I have the ability to create my network of other calligraphers that I can recommend. So on the bottom of under, it has my information. It's my page has my information and my portfolios and stuff. And my price sheet and links to my Instagram and my website. And then underneath that, it shows the people that I am referring to, if I'm not, that I would recommend. And everybody can do that. Everybody can do that for each other.
That's super cool. So everyone who is watching or listening and is interested in what Kestrel just said, I will leave all the links to all the websites mentioned, including the Nibtique, in the description. So if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to find them. If not, they're mentioned many times. I'm pretty sure you'll find a way to go there. And what else? What's from all this stuff that you've been doing, calligraphy, engraving, teaching, and all the stuff, like products, which is your favorite part about calligraphy?
Gosh, that's so hard. That is so hard. Because I feel like what makes it exciting to me is the fact that I get to do all these different things.
So maybe this is the answer. Doing everything is your favorite part.
Tendencies.
Okay.
Right, I do. I think that's what is exciting about this world of calligraphy. There's so many things that can be done with it, and that it just, I have a hard time staying focused because I'm constantly thinking of something else that I want to do, and it drives Francisco crazy. He's always like, can we just chill out? I'm like, no, but what about this and that and this and that and this and that I haven't been able to get to yet because they're still on the to-do list. And he's like, the problem is that you add 2 things to the to-do list every time you take one thing off. No, you add 5 things to the to-do list every time you take one thing off. I'm like, I can't help it.
No, but that's pretty cool. Better to be creative and do stuff rather than doing nothing, I love this about you. And your work shows you do so much good things for the community. It's amazing.
Well, likewise. I know how hard I work and how many hours I put in a week and how there's really no such thing as an actual weekend, right? And I know that for myself, and then I look at what you're doing and I don't even comprehend how you fit it all in, honestly, because you have such a huge community that you've built. I know you're getting drowned in messages, drowned in, emails, and you post so much good content. It's really impressive. You must not sleep at all, because I know I don't sleep much. You must not sleep at all.
Well, I sleep, but sometimes I don't. There's definitely been times that I just work for 20-30 hours straight, but I don't know. It's passion. It's what we love doing,
Right.
But wow, time flies. It's been almost 2 hours.
I know.
I just saw the time. I didn't expect. Just listening to all these stories, so cool. But yeah, let's. I have few more important, like 2 or 3 important questions.
Okay.
And throughout all these years being involved with calligraphy, can you mention a few names that influenced you, that were inspiring you a lot, and few names that currently you are looking up to it, that inspire you with their calligraphy lettering? Or
That there's so many amazing artists out there. I think I've already mentioned a lot of the ones that really come to my mind immediately on my day to day. You know, I don't think a day goes by that I'm not at some point thinking about, you know, Suzanne's work or Harvest's work, or you know, Trillet is one. I can't even wrap my head around Trillet's skill and talent.
And he's so young. He's so young.
It kind of makes me sick. Like it.
I know what you mean.
Oh, he blows my mind. And then, you know, I'm also in awe of, like we mentioned, you know, I think that Huang's work is beautiful. I think Sachin's work is beautiful. I love Heather Held. I mean, who doesn't? Her work looks like a fairy. A fairy made everything, right? For like kind of fun, light-hearted, modern stuff. You know, EP lettering I think is really nice. I love Elizabeth Avenue. On some of these people, I don't know their real names.
No, I know what you mean. I have the same.
But and then you had asked me before about books.
Yeah, like,
and I don't have a ton of books, but I love the Speedball textbooks. I think that they're such a great, you know, flip through and you see all the different examples. So I have to say Speedball textbooks, and I would love to collect more editions of them. I only own 2.
I only own 1. It's the last one.
The most recent one. I have the 2 most recent ones.
Okay.
The 24th and 25th, and I'd love to find, you know, older ones, and then more. Another great resource is for flourishing and for pointed pen examples. I'm going to butcher how this is said out loud. I don't know how it's pronounced, but have you seen Penavolan's account?
No.
Well, Penavolan. I'll send it to you in writing.
Okay.
When we finish, but she, Sabile, I think her name is Sabile, has made, she has spent countless hours, I can only imagine, gathering different examples from all different historic documents and places to put together these packets where it's like there's a PDF of just A's, all different forms of A, and then a PDF of B, all different forms of B. They're all flourished, like different flourished A's, flourished B's. So now she has gotten through the whole alphabet. You know, she was creating one at a time, and they're all listed individually. So now she's finished the entire alphabet, and so I have all the PDFs now, and my goal is to now like print them all and put them in a binder to just be able to reference and get ideas from. So I think she's done an amazing job with that. I have to find her account because it's horrible that
Yeah, you definitely have to send it to me because this sounds really cool, and I definitely want to check it.
So I think that that's a great resource. And then all of the free resources on INKmeThis.com as well. That I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of those. You know, there's a lot of information, and then of course you're building an incredible resource for everybody as well. So those are my main main places. Here it is. Yeah. PENNAVOLANS. Pennavolans on Instagram is, or pennavolans.com. And so she's put together a great resource. So those are some of my favorites.
Awesome. Well, is there something that I haven't asked you and you wanted to speak about? Or if there is something that you want to share, to promote or whatever?
Well, I've already shamelessly plugged INKmeThis, LearnCalligraphy.com, and Nibtique.
This podcast is about you, and they are part of you. Like
they are very much my projects, and very proud of them. So yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell more people about them.
Yes, I'll make sure to include. So, like now that I think I can now actually add the links also to the Spotify and all the audio platforms. So I'll make sure to put all the links in the description and the info wherever you're absorbing this information. And yeah, if for the end, if you can give an advice or wish something to the people that are just starting, and like just tell them something that you think would help them, or I don't know, something that helped you. Or just wish them something, whatever, or just say bye.
Yeah, I just truly hope that everybody finds as much joy and interest in calligraphy as I have. It's the first and only hobby that's ever captured my attention ever. So I just love it, and I just hope everybody else feels that way too. That's all. I don't know.
Awesome. That's perfect.
Not very eloquent of me, but I feel like that's such a big question. I could go in so many directions with it. I'm just flabbergasted and blessed to be part of this community, and feel like I still pinch myself that I get to do this.
Awesome. So thank you, Kestrel, for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you.
I had a super awesome time listening to your story. Like I said, almost 2 hours passed like this. I was surprised that so much time passed, but thank you for being guest. And you're part of the crew now.
And now you will include a nib in your holders.
Yes.
And you will show some real-time calligraphy videos.
I promise. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. And as always, keep writing.